We'll start off. This is going to be a special meeting in Springfield Township Board of Trustees regarding the Ranch Hill Estates Road Improvement public hearing. Mr. Burning, may we please have the roll call?
Mr. Burning?
Present.
Mr. Honolaw?
Present.
Mr. McFarland's out with from surgery, so we're good to go.
Okay. First thing, Mr. Hennekamp, do you have some comments to make?
Just a quick one for the record, Mr. Honolaw. As you mentioned, this is the public hearing on the Ranch Hill Matora and Pecora Drive project. This public hearing is required by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 557310. We did give notice in compliance with the Sunshine Law and the requirements of the ORC on February 21st and February the 28th. As the board may recall, we were planning on doing this last month, and inadvertently one of those notices didn't go out, so that's why it was moved to this month. The project actually involves the replacement of all concrete curb, repair of the catch basins, and resurfacing with 2.5 inches of new asphalt on the 3 streets that I mentioned: Ranch Hill, Montoro, and Pecora. This marks the 6th assessment project by the township since we adopted our 5-year infrastructure improvement plan, which was, of course, part of the neighborhood comprehensive master plan back in 2006. We do 2 types of assessments. As the board is aware, this is considered a voluntary assessment. A public meeting was conducted with the residents affected by these improvements back on August the 16th of 2016, and explained the project, and generally everybody in favor was, or everybody in attendance was in favor of the project. It's a total of 135 parcels on the streets mentioned, representing the property owners to be assessed for this project, and obviously we have reached over 51% of that number. This is an assessment that will be $34.02 for a period of 10 years, and will be apportioned and paid equally by the property owners abutting the improvement as established by ORC 557307A1. Back on the 14th of November, this board passed resolution 101-217, where you basically determined the necessity for this road improvement project as it was requested by the petitioners. That petition obviously was forwarded to the board, and then you passed that resolution. That essentially was the project's go-ahead. And so as a result, there was a bid opening that took place on the 13th of November. We awarded it on the 14th, and this project is ready to go. This hearing, obviously no one in attendance, but this hearing is essentially a tax assessment objection hearing. So if someone objected to the way the project was being assessed, this would be their opportunity to ask the board to take into consideration, because the ORC does allow for a variety of different ways in which it can be done. As the board knows, our practice has just been to basically do it equally and assess, regardless of how much frontage you have, all the homeowners or properties on the improvement get assessed equally. So that is really it. There will be a resolution for our regular meeting tonight, and that would then be adopting the estimates and specifications reported by the county engineer for the said improvements. And that is resolution 15218, which you'll consider later at your meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hennekamp. With that, is there any, Mr. Barney, you have any comments?
No, not about that project.
I would like the record to reflect that there is no one in attendance.
There were no written objections either this evening.
We're not.
Okay. With that, then, do we have a motion to close this portion of the meeting? I don't think we have to take a vote or anything. That'll be later at the resolution.
Right.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's closed.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Next, it is 5 o'clock, and that is the scheduled time for the Lakeview Park Road Improvement Project public hearing. And this hearing is, again, identical in nature to the one that we just did here on Ranch Hill Estates. I guess, Mr. Bernie, we have the roll call for this hearing.
Yes, Mr. Bernie,
Present?
Mr. Honolaw,
Present.
and Ms. McFarland had surgery.
Mr. Henkamp, same comments?
Same comments, I'll just do those, again, just for the record. Again, this public hearing is required for the Lake Park subdivision improvements pursuant to ORC 557310. And we did give notice in compliance with Sunshine and the requirements for ORC 557310 on the 21st of February and then also on the 28th of February. This particular improvement involves the repair of all catch basins and the resurfacing with 2.5 inches of new asphalt on Lakeside Drive, Lakeshore Drive, Lake Park Drive, Jack Pine Drive, Chatterton Drive, and Wind Lake Drive. This then marks the 7th project that the township is doing in this format. And again, it's been in accordance with our 5-year master plan and overall neighborhood comprehensive master plan. This is also a voluntary type assessment project. We had a public meeting with the residents back on August the 17th of 2016 to explain this process. And I think at that meeting, all the residents that were attended were in favor of this project. You know what, I think on both of them I said this is a voluntary. This is actually what we consider mandatory because both of these are skipped. So I misspoke on both of those. These are actually what we call mandatory, but we have the public meeting to see if there's any objection before we go through with our skip application. And that was the case on both of these. Total of 111 parcels on the 6th Street, on the 6 streets included. The assessment being proposed on this particular project is $59.80 for a total of 10 years. And again, that will be apportioned equally to the property owners abutting the road improvement. Again, according to ORC 5573.07A1. Board did pass a resolution 7/2018 back on January the 9th of 2018 determining necessity for the road improvements as requested, and that essentially was the project's go ahead. And as I mentioned, we gave notice as required, and again, same type of deal, Mr. Honor, that this is essentially an equalization hearing, an opportunity for someone to object if they feel the assessment being levied is unfair as it applies to their property versus others being assessed in the project. And we did have a bid opening on December 7th. Or I'm sorry, we didn't. This is a project that's actually being done in cooperation with the Hamilton County Engineers Office. So the county did conduct that bid opening. They did it on December the 7th. And the project was awarded on January the 24th. And we're anticipating construction here early in the spring.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
And to follow up on Laura's comment, were there any written objections received?
Have received none.
Okay. And we'll let the record reflect that there is no one in attendance here at this meeting to voice any concerns regarding the method in which we assess the properties. Do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Welcome to the Springfield Township Board of Trustees meeting. It is March 13th, 2018 at approximately 5:30 p.m. Mr. Burning, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Burning,
Present?
Mr. Honolaw,
Present.
Ms. McFarland's absent.
Okay. The first thing on our agenda this evening, well, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, The first thing we have on the agenda this evening, which is a little different, is we are going to have a public hearing on our 2018 permanent appropriations. And Mr. Hennekamp, you have a presentation here to give and a PowerPoint.
I do, Mr. Hunter Law. I know the board is familiar with this, so we'll go through this fairly rapidly. Looks like we have a pretty small group here today, but really just, this is the time of the year. This is kind of the final step into what is a fairly lengthy budget process. So what I'd like to do is just quickly review the budget process we go through and then hit some of the highlights on our 2018 permanent appropriations, and then just a real quick overview on how we look for 5-year projections in our 3 major funds. Of course, that's the general fund, the police district fund, and the fire and EMS fund, and then open that up to any questions residents have. Our budget process really starts way back in July when we go through our, what we call our tax budget, which sort of sets the actual revenues and expenditures for the 2 previous years, and then our estimated for the first half and then the current year. We go through that process. There's a series of documents then get submitted back and forth between the county budget commission, and then the township. And then late in October, we get from the county a certification, basically allowing us or giving you sort of the official amounts in each of the funds as to what is available for appropriation. We go through our temporary appropriations are due then to the board by January 1st, and the board sets those. Those temporaries are there to keep the government running, and then you have until the end of this month to do your permanent. And so that is what we're doing at this point with this meeting. So looking at our total appropriations for this year is at $28,141,211. Of that amount, approximately $20,360,000 and comes from revenue that we anticipate to receive in 2018, and about almost $7.7 million is coming from revenues that are essentially carryovers from previous year cash flow, which leaves a balance of unencumbered money or unappropriated money of $10,669,683. Kind of going through these fund by fund, if we look at where we stand, our carryover coming from the end of last year, or 2017 carryover at $6.5 million. This represents about $1.3 million more than we anticipated our carryover to be last year at this time. That's not surprising, given that we generally project fairly conservatively on revenue. And then this just gives you kind of a breakdown about, well, where's that $1.3 million excess or better than what we projected coming from. And as you can see, the lion's share of that is our JEDS revenue, which we do forecast somewhat conservatively, because you can't know from year to year. That's probably the most volatile of all of our funds and all of our revenue sources, coming primarily from payroll tax. We did have some slight increase in our Grove revenue, our state tax, a very small amount, some aggregation that wasn't factored in their revenues, and then a fleet reimbursement was actually $189,000 less than anticipated. We anticipate 2018 general fund revenue to be just a little over $4 million at 4.1, and that does anticipate, that in that projection of what we anticipate to receive in 2018, forecast a little over $2 million in JEDS revenue. That does reflect about $103,000 more than what we budgeted or what we forecasted last year. So when you take the two and you say, well, we've got a $6.5 million carryover from last year, roughly $4 million, there's a total of $10,703,470 of monies available for appropriation in the general fund. Our police district fund had a end of year 2017 carryover of $5.8 million. This was about $689,290, greater than anticipated last year, and most of that coming just in the reduction of expenditures and a little bit more revenue that came in. So looking at that same total, with the police district fund, we anticipate revenues of $7.1 million. With that 5.8 gives them a total appropriations available for 2018 of just over $13 million. Fire district, our carryover for 2017 at just a little over $3.2 million. This is just under a $200,000 increase from what was projected in 2017 last year in March. And again, that's kind of the same format. We do anticipate just under $5 million of revenue coming in on the fire EMS district fund. As we all know, the levy, the replacement levy did in fact pass, and so that's not new money, but it's make sure that we're going to continue to receive the same amount over the next 5 years. So with the $3.2 million carryover and the $4.9 million funds available, they will have a total available for appropriation of $8.1 million. The EMS fund had a carryover of $580,563. This is the fund, this revenue is generated from EMS billing. This represents about $160,000 increase from where we were in March of last year. And then your totals, again, we anticipate just a little over $800,000 worth of revenue from the EMS fund this year. That coupled with last year's carryover gives us a total available for appropriation of just under $1.4 million. Service department funds are a little different. Those are not, most of those are not levy-based. The road district is, but for the most part, these are different in the sense that where our police district and our fire district are dollars that we are not shocked by those balances because they're levy and you're trying to get them to last for a long period of time. So you're definitely going to have some excess and you're not spending everything that you have because they have to last into the future. A little different with the service department funds. Generally, these are dollars that for the most part you're going to maximize these funds out each year and expend them at their maximum limits. So I won't read all those totals, but what I like to show there is just a comparison, a little different format, and how I represent that is just how do we look compared to last year. So these dollars are already showing you a total in each of those different funds of both the carryover amount and the revenue. So that would be what it was on the left. That number is the 2017 number, and then on the right, you're seeing the number of what is available in each of those funds this year. And as you can see, and this is an unfortunate and kind of disturbing trend that's been going on for a while. For the most part, those are we're going to have less money than we did last year. If you total those all up, it's not a tremendous amount, but it's $75,000 less in revenue from those 5 funds than what we had in 2017. Sometimes that can be skewered, especially with the road district, because that can sometimes be the effect of the timing of a project. But for the most part, it paints a picture that we've been telling for a long time, is that the service department or public works funds are fairly limited. And what that really means is you're seeing a little greater increase in the demand each year on what needs to be done with the general fund. Our TIF fund, TIF district, this is tax increment financing fund, has a carryover of about $600,000. We anticipate new revenue of about $405,000, so you have a total available of just a little over $1 million. As part of our TIF, we have an arrangement with the school districts. There's 3 school districts now, or 2 two school districts. It's Finneytown and Winton Woods, and then also the Great Oaks is now a part of that as well. We have agreements when we did the TIF years ago that to make them whole. And so that $321,000 has to come out, and those are payments back to the schools. That's money they would have received if there wasn't a TIF. And so when you really look at it, our total available for township-type TIF appropriations is about $684,000. So all in all, appropriations really for 2018 as compared to 17 look pretty similar. We're actually, just a little over $200,000 less in 2018 than we were in 17, so really no trend upward. That's a good trend that our budget's slightly less than it was in 18, but for the most part, very, very similar. And then of what we sort of talked about in a recap, here's just a look at where the major funds stand to account for that $28 million total. And there's 6 different capital improvement projects that we haven't talked, and those total about $2.3 million worth of expenditures anticipated. So looking at appropriations in the police district, again, these are totals of what we anticipate to expend, or is at least what's being presented to the board for adoption in your resolution. Just under $9 million, and then there's a variety of other funds related to police activities. Most of these funds, there's a good number of these funds are related to our task force, our DART task force, and then a variety of the other ones are established and very, very restricted. So they're very limited as to what they can be used for. They get their funding from certain also fairly unique seizures, things like that, but then you can generally not expend a good number of those on any kind of personnel related, and usually they're equipment related. So very, very restrictive funds other than the police district fund. Fire and EMS appropriations overview, just under $6 million being appropriated for our fire and EMS fund, and a little bit over the $1 million for our EMS services fund. Looking at sort of the highlights of where the vast majority of our money is going, this is a fairly boring budget. I mean, there's not a lot of things that are really outside the norm. It's pretty much, this budget is established on what we do. If I had to point out one thing, it of course is our infrastructure, and just under $4 million were the total appropriations in our permanent appropriations for infrastructure related. About $910,000 of that, so just under $1 million coming out of the general fund. That encompasses 5 projects. The road district has just under $300,000 encompassing 2 projects, and then also $238,000 are the loan repayments that we have, those OPWC loan repayments. And then there are about $2.7 million worth of projects coming out that are OPWC projects, a total of 5. Some of them are grant, some of those are loan projects, but that's what totals up in this year's budget. And to get into a little bit more specifics, again, I won't read all this to you, but you can see where we are, where those appropriations are, the projects, and the amounts for the different projects. Generally, our general fund is being used on these pavement rejuvenation projects. So these are all assessment projects that we're looking at. I think DeSoto is actually a block grant funding project. Those are the ones that there's also a voluntary assessment that goes with those, expected to be built this year. In the road district, a couple of other projects as well coming out, and then of course the aforementioned loan repayments that we have on OPWC projects that we've done over the years. And then these are the OPWC projects where there is some participation through the SCIP process. The Lakeview Park project is actually being constructed this year. That's a 10-year loan Total appropriation of $794,000. So obviously we won't expend that amount. We have to appropriate that total amount, but ours will be just under $80,000 for that. The Ranch Hill project is also a 10-year loan project, $526,000. That is also to be built this year. And then you see three projects. These are the SKIP awards from actually back in November. These are the three projects that there'll be appropriations in this year, but there won't be any construction. These are projects that we anticipate that will be built in 2019. And really just a couple of the other highlights of looking at our some of our big expenditures, and it's what it is generally every year. Just, we have equipment is a huge part in our public works and service, so these are essentially replacement type items. The salt truck is kind of an annual thing, as we just have to always continue to replace that fleet, and we're continuing to go on with a smaller salt truck as we started that process a few years ago. In the police department, pretty much their big expenditure on equipment is cruisers, and we'll be purchasing $130,000 worth of cruisers, which I think is 3 total cruisers by the time we purchase them and outfit them. And yep. And then in fire and EMS, a variety of different things, but again, just sort of the day-to-day tools, turnout gear, one vehicle and a first responder, but most of it is pretty much the operational equipment. Internally, as far as capital improvements, sort of buildings and grounds to our facilities, you can see a series of things. The vast majority of the work really taking place in our senior community center, and a lot of that is the HVAC repairs and some painting and things of that nature. Also some internal improvements taking place to the Grove. Most of these are just keeping these facilities up and replacing what needs to be replaced at this time. So a lot of it is maintenance-oriented type things. Personnel, really the only change this year was to add, we actually took a full-time or a part-time employee, Tamara, who's sitting in the back, to full-time this year. The total staff of full-time employees, however, remains at 8 for the vast majority of 2018. Service department, really just one new part-time laborer, and the police department, really no increase, just a replacement of one full-time police officer this year. Most of the activity on our personnel and most of our crunches, really, as we've talked for a long time during our work session back in December, is the personnel-related issues in our fire department. And this is not something unique to Springfield Township. It's just what we're really seeing happening regionally and really across the country with the demand for medics and the availability of them really changing. So as of this point, there are 2 new full-time medic firefighter positions that have been appropriated, and those individuals have already been added to our staff. And then we're in the process of adding 4 new part-time, what we call an 1820. So that is a position that would work 1,820 hours per year. It's a little different classification than a straight part-time. And those, again, medic firefighters to try to address the need that we have. Looking at the general fund, I guess from a positive standpoint, obviously we've talked about this, is that this does represent the highest carryover amount that we've ever had in township history. So certainly good news there, and the vast majority of that is related to what's happening with our JEDs and revenues continuing to flow a little bit higher than what we anticipated. And while that's a good news, there are really challenges on the horizon, as there always are. So the fact that our general fund is looking better, that's a good thing, because we have a lot of demand when you look down to the next 5 years. The cable fee sustainability is also always something that we have to be very, very concerned about, of the impact if the law ever changed on that. And then just the infrastructure, as we've talked about, the funds available to our public works is declining each year. And so that means that there'll be greater burden placed on the general fund to make that up. And now we're seeing that as we've talked in our fire department. If we want to get 5 years out of that levy that was just passed, the general fund is probably going to have to be participating. And we started doing that this year, not necessarily with the direct cost, but we've eliminated the shared cost that used to come back from our different departments. And then just for the township to be able to meet other goals and other things that it needs, that general fund is the place we go. So there will always be and will continue to be increasing demands on the general fund, but it looks good, but it's certainly not going to ever be in excess of money based on what the demands are. As I talked about, probably the one that has the biggest concern is our 5-year projections in our fire and EMS district. Currently, as we're projecting right here with this appropriation, that fund is stable through 2020, but as after that fact that there's some concerns, and as I mentioned earlier, we've taken some steps to address that. The paramedicine program that Chief has been, working on and very instrumental in getting off the ground has some potentially to bring in some additional revenue to that fund that might ease some of that burden. And then we're also looking to address the contract areas where we've had some pretty significant mutual aid impact. So again, both are opportunities for additional revenues as we get into the next 2 or 3 years. It's something that we'll have to look at, but the staffing concern, and it's just going to have to be an ongoing conversation with our residents regarding the level of service that they both desire and demand versus what that's going to cost. And always, that's really no different than any of our services, but in this one, you're really seeing that cost rise at a really increasing rate. And then the police district is looking pretty strong through the next 5-year period. I don't really anticipate on paper that 5th year really doesn't come out and show it, but history tells me generally on the way our projections have worked over the years, if we don't have a unexpected change or a major expense or something unforeseen come up, I feel pretty confident that there won't be the demand for any change to that levy, and they look pretty solid for the next 5-year period. So that's a quick run through of where our fund balances look like and some of the major highlights. So happy to answer any questions of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Hennenkamp. That's a good summary of a complicated topic. I do not have any questions myself, but I would throw it open to the audience. Is there anyone here that has a question? Anyone in the audience wants to? After all that, it's hard to come up with a question. Mark, do you think questions?
I don't have any questions. The only thing I would say is I think all around the county and probably the state, you're seeing what's going on with fire departments with the lack of part-time firefighters that really help the budgeting of fire because you could plug them in and not have the full-time shifts and so forth. And I read in the paper every other day, another community talks about the problems that facing fire departments all around because of the lack of part-timers. There's so few firefighters that everybody can get part-time work or full-time work. So finding part-timers, if you find one, they're probably not the cream of the crop if they can't find full-time. So we're definitely, that seems to be the biggest forward-looking problem that we have. But other than that, I don't have any other comments.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, Mr. Hennenkamp. We'll have a resolution later on in our meeting to adopt the permanent appropriations for 2018. The next thing on our agenda is approval of minutes, but before we get there, I wanted to call to everyone's attention. This is a special meeting and historic in certain ways, as this is the last regular township meeting that Mike Hennenkamp will be serving as our township administrator.
Why are you
Mike,
I've been smiling for a couple months now.
Yes, you have.
Mike, Mike has been our administrator for over 22 years. I've had the pleasure of serving on the board during pretty much that same entire period, and it is, I can say it has been a pleasure and a privilege to serve with Mike. His leadership, the level of excellence that the example that you've set and what you've demanded of our department heads, of all the staff, has been over the top. Springfield Township's recognized as a leader in local government in Ohio, and a lot of that credit goes to Mike. And it's something that Mike, your influence and work shows up all over the township, and I can tell you this is not, you couldn't recognize this place from when I started. We had you had to walk through a garage to get into a little office with a pink desk, and then you walk through that to get into Mike's office that had another pink desk. And then we had our meeting room in the upstairs, the old fire station, and it had a pink dais. And I don't know what it was about pink, but it was, we didn't have the kind of budgeting. We always had to have this, we had to have a state budget, but the kind of financial forecasting and things that Mike has done, this is just one example of 100 things, and I'm not going to go through everything tonight. I know we have a retirement party coming up for you where I'm sure you're going to get appropriately recognized for many of the things. So, but if we could, I'd like to come down in front. Mike, we do have something for you.
I get the first kick.
This one.
Mike, we have a proclamation here which we'd like to present to you this evening. This is declaring that March 13th, 2018 is Michael T. Henning-Camp Day in Springfield Township. And the proclamation reads, whereas the Board of Trustees of Springfield Township would like to recognize Michael T. Henning-Camp for his 22 years of dedicated service to Springfield Township, and whereas Mr. Henning-Camp began his service as Township Administrator in 1995, and whereas he served Springfield Township with professionalism, dignity, creativity, and dedication, making the township the benchmark in the region for local government innovation and operational efficiencies, and whereas you provided the township with outstanding leadership, and the community and staff have benefited from his absolute dedication and commitment to his duties and responsibilities as Township Administrator. And whereas Mr. Henning-Camp advanced the cause of local governments throughout Ohio by sharing his knowledge and expertise in lobbying for and testifying in support of bills of significance being considered by the Ohio legislature. And whereas Mr. Henning-Camp mentored and assisted in the development of the next generation of local government leaders through his participation in the CLG Leadership Academy, as well as other formal and informal mentoring opportunities. And whereas Mr. Henning-Camp admirably represented the township and advanced its interest by his active participation on and in leadership roles with numerous boards, committees, and organizations throughout the state of Ohio. And whereas Mr. Henning-Camp fostered tremendous growth in the township, including the creation of the Springfield Township Fire Department, expansion of the police department, construction of the Township Civic Center complex, development of the Public Works facility, completion of the Winton Road streetscape, adoption of township zoning, and many planning documents that have guided the community over the past 22 years. Now, therefore, in commemoration of Michael T. Hennenkamp's final meeting as administrator of Springfield Township, the Board of Trustees of Springfield Township hereby declares March 13th, 2018 to be Michael T. Hennenkamp Day in Springfield Township. Springfield Township Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Joe's holding that microphone from me. That's a lot of whereases. As Mark said, it sounds like something I would write. Kind of worried, but I swear I didn't write that. This, as it was a couple last week at this time with the police department, surprised me. This is a surprise and not necessary. I don't have a lot. All I really want to say is how blessed I've been. Everything that's on there that we've been able to accomplish truly has not been accomplished by me. It's been accomplished by this team. I've been so fortunate over 22 years to work with incredible elected officials, really from start to finish. I've had their support. You can talk about a lot of ideas, but if you don't have the support of a board that will help you implement those and support that, then it really, all your ideas go for naught. So I've been so blessed and really so thankful for the board support. The team that I've had to work with, our staff of department heads, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, is really second to none. I mean, we have first-class people. We have a tremendous amount of talent. They're very, very dedicated to what they do, and they really deserve the credit for this because while it could have been my idea, it was in their case many times them that were implementing it. And of course our employees, our police officers, our firefighters, our laborers in the service department, they're the ones that are out there every day. They're the ones that are providing that service that our residents see. So it is it is really a total team thing, and I don't mean that as a cliche. It's just what I'm going to miss the most about this place is the people, is the staff, and of course Laura. I mean, all of the things that we've done. How many times we've done innovative things that I said, Laura, I want to try to do this, and she said, you can't, and we said, there's got to be a way. And so without her brilliance, and I mean brilliance, legal mind, again, none of this would happen. So a lot of the credit, as it oftentimes does, goes to one individual, and that's clearly not the case here. A team of elected officials and our fiscal officers and our law director over the years and the staff. It's just always worked very, very well. So thank you very, very much for the recognition. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity. And as I said, I've missed this place more than words can really describe. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to live here. So I may show up out there a little bit, a couple times. And I'm looking forward to the services that this community will keep providing for me as a resident and keeping my family safe. So thank you very, very, very much.
Okay, moving on with our agenda this evening, we have approval of minutes from our regular meeting on February 13th, 2018, our regular work session on February 27th, 2018, and a special meeting bid opening on March 12th, 2018. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, Mr. Burning, do we have a fiscal officer report?
Yes. For the month ending February 28th, 2018, the township expenditures were $1,387,213.95, and receipts were $4,317,061.45. The ending cash balance of $20,592,714.63 includes obligations for expenditures, payroll, regular operating costs, ongoing capital improvement projects, and investments. I do request a motion to approve the receipts, warrants, payroll expenditures, updated and current revenues, and reports for the period ending February 28th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I want everyone to know that the financial reports are available for viewing weekdays during regular business hours here at the administration office or on our website any day. And that's all I have, Joe. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Next, moving on to departmental action and discussion items. Mr. Henningkamp, do you have a report for us?
I do, me again. Just several action items. The first is to add 2 caterers to our approved caterer list. The first is Wyoming Meat Market at 513 Wyoming Avenue, and the second is Eli's Barbecue at 3313 Riverside Drive. Just need a motion from the board to authorize those 2 caterers being added to our approved caterer list.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item is to award a salt truck bid. We had a bid opening yesterday afternoon and just received the one bidder. I don't know that that was necessarily not, I think that was kind of anticipated. The estimated cost for the bid was $75,000. The one bid that we did get was for $71,433 from Henderson Products, and they did submit the required security bond. I would recommend that we award that bid to Henderson Products for our salt truck and truck body and accessory package, and that be, of course, contingent on final legal review by Mr. Abrams.
So moved.
Just a quick question on that. Mike, these are stainless steel bodies?
That is correct.
We decided, I know a number of years ago, we decided we were going to go that way. And there was just the one bid. This isn't anything we could procure cheaper through any kind of a state bid or anything?
No, this bidding process is the best method that we can go about at this
Okay.
time.
All right. Very good. I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item is to seek the board's authorization to allow me to sign the community development block grant agreement between Hamilton County and Springfield Township. This will be for the project actually taking place just next door on the Brentwood Bowl property, where there will be a mural painted and also some landscaping improvements done in a plaza that's created. This is, I guess, not really unusual, but just necessary for that project. It's a little outside the scope of what we typically do with CDBG. Chris, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to this, but basically what I'm looking for is a motion from the board just to allow me to enter into this contract.
You want to add anything, Chris?
No, unless there's any questions.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item is the board needs to set 2 dates, or actually 1 date, but set dates for 2 different zoning case hearings. We have 2 rezonings coming through the process and need to be scheduled for board hearing. So the first would be for zoning case 2018-001, which is rezoning on property on Corbett Road, in the scheduling of that public hearing. And then the second one is zoning commission case 2018-02, which is at 750 and 768 Fleming Road. So I don't know if the board's pleasure, those certainly could be done in the same evening. Obviously, they're both separate public hearings for the two different cases, but you could do them back to back if that's your pleasure.
I thought that made the most sense, unless, Chris, you have another,
No, and just to clarify, I think they can be done at the same public hearing. I don't think there has to be two separate public hearings. It would just be two items on the same agenda. That's
One
typically how we've
meeting,
done it. Yeah, one meeting,
One
two.
meeting, they're both separate public hearings
Correct.
for each
But-
case.
But one meeting is my
yeah,
point, yeah.
yes. And what was the time frame? Did we,
We discussed April 3rd at 5:30 PM to start the public hearing.
okay, that sounds like that would work.
That's fine with me.
And that's going to be at 5:30 PM, and that's going to be here in the Allen Paul room.
Correct.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries for both meetings.
Okay, and the last action item, just in light of everything else we did tonight, I would seek a motion from the board to formally appoint Christopher D. Gilbert as Township Administrator and have that date be effective as of March 24th, 2018, and to be preceded by, that the board would work out final details of his employment agreement at a later time, probably at a future board work session.
So moved.
And I will, with pleasure, second that motion. One of the things which Mike has excelled in, and Chris has too, is we've come up with a transition plan here for the township. I know a lot of townships, there could be vacancies in their administrator, and they have difficulty, trying to find them. We've been working for years to come up with, to have a smooth transition. And we look forward to working with Chris. I think everything is going to be great for the township. So,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. You're stuck. No turning back. You're it, man.
Just under discussion items, just a few announcements. I know, just wanted to make the public aware that our 2017 annual report is available both on our website, and also we do actually have the hard copy of it. And I know, Joe, it looks like you've got one in front of you. Those are available here at the Township Administration Building, or they're being placed anywhere else. I guess that's, so if somebody would like one, but it is available on the website as well. And then I know something that Ms. Abrams has been working long hours on for, the last 3 or 4 months. I think it was back in, was it November or October, we had a request from a group that has been doing this at a variety of different jurisdictions throughout the region on seeking better protection for dogs. And specifically, we're looking at restrictions on how a dog could be tethered. This isn't a huge problem in the township, but from time to time, in talking with Chief Browder, we do encounter this unfortunate situation. And so not looking for any action now, but later there will be a resolution. And I believe we've combined not only these additional requirements or restrictions regarding tethering, have also been banded together with our existing previous resolutions that we had regarding barking and howling dogs as well. So we've sort of made it a little bit more comprehensive. So Laura, you drafted it, I'll let you.
What we were trying to do is similar to what we did with our parking regulations a couple years ago. Over the years, we've dealt with, as all jurisdictions have, dealt with these issues piecemeal. So you have these resolutions throughout time that some of them are even just only embodied in actual minutes of meetings. So they're not an actual separate resolution. So I worked with Chief Browder, and we went through and looked at what dog resolutions we'd had through the years, looked at what other issues have come up with him, and tried to get something comprehensive in its own sort of chapter, the way we did with the parking regulations as well. So as things come up, we now know, have a placeholder to put them they could just be added to this regulation going forward. But we did deal with a little better drafting and how to handle the barking dogs. Did deal with the tethering, did deal with some unsanitary conditions for dogs being left in unsanitary conditions. We also specifically repeal, if you recall, a couple years ago when the pit bull issue was in flux, we had our vicious dog review board, which some of our members here were on. It was very creative at the time, but the Supreme Court changed some requirements. They got rid of breed-specific bans, and there were a lot of changes to 955.21.22 at the time. So we have repealed some of those that are no longer effective and reverted back to the state statute for that. So I think it is comprehensive. It does what we need to do at this point, and it gives us a place to handle the other dog issues that come up in the future. And it handles tethering, which is what the request was. And we tweaked that a little bit to make it enforceable for what we need in the township as well.
Well, Laura, I've had an opportunity to review the regulations, and I think they make a lot of sense. You know, it's all humane stuff that, you know, there's nothing on there where you would say, oh, why are we doing this? But it's all common sense things that you would expect any dog owner to, you know, feel was reasonable, you know, way to.
You would hope.
Yeah, you would hope. You know, there's always the weirdos or outliers that, you know, we run into situations where we see animals left out in the cold, you know, for long periods and all kinds of things. But, you know, this will give us a way to address those better, I think.
It will, and it's been a long time coming, and I appreciate Ms. Abrams' hard work on that too, but we're finally, I think, where we need to be, and we went back, and I know into the 80s to pull some of the former resolutions to put it all together, so it's in real time now.
Chief, thanks for all your work and contribution to the effort.
Well, Laura's calling this my legacy resolution, but I didn't do any of the work on it.
She had to come up with something.
Pretty much the way it always works around here, so keep that streak going. So thank you to Laura, and we'll have the actual resolution a little bit here to adopt that. The last thing I have is the personnel update in very limited activity, although we did have a flurry of fire hirings, which is good news, and we'll have those next month on the report. But for this month, just one part-time 18-20-hour employee laborer hired, and that was Tom Merkel. And the effective date of Tom's employment with the township is February 26th of this year. And I would ask Kim to bring us up to date with community events and programs.
Thank you. I only have 3 events that I wanted to mention. This weekend, we've got the Mom Prom. That event has been sold out for 3 months. On April the 27th, we're bringing Playhouse in the Park in for a free show, Rapunzel. And with that particular pre-show, Finneytown High School is coming in and doing a pre-show performance with their percussion ensemble group. And then on May 1st is the Community Day at the Reds event, and proceeds for ticket sales for that particular event are actually going to go to Arts Connect this year.
Okay, and I know the board has copies of the departmental activity reports, so unless there's any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hennenkamp. Next, moving on to resolutions this evening. We have a number of resolutions. The first one is resolution number 15, 2018, adopting the estimates and specifications reported by the county engineer for improvement to Ranch Hill Drive, Montoro Drive, and Pecora Drive, approving and confirming the assessments for such improvement and ordering that the improvement proceed. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Burning?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 16, 2018, adopting the estimates and specifications reported by the county engineer for improvement to Lakeside Drive, Lakeshore Drive, Lake Park Drive, Jack Pine Court, Chatterton Drive, and Wind Lake Drive, approving and confirming the assessments for such improvement and ordering that the improvement proceed. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution Number 17, 2018, adopting permanent appropriations for fiscal year 2018. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution Number 18, 2018, authorizing the private sale of junk motor vehicles which were titled to the township pursuant to Revised Code 4513.61 and Revised Code 4513.62, and which are not needed or unfit for use in any township department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution Number 19, 2018, establishing assessment for abatement of dangerous property condition and certifying the same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution Number 20, 2018, declaring nuisances pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 505.87 at various listed properties within Springfield Township and authorizing statutory actions necessary to abate the nuisances. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution Number 21, 2018, declaring motor vehicles located on public or private property in Springfield Township, Hamilton County, Ohio, to be junk motor vehicles pursuant to Revised Code Section 505.173 and ordering the removal of such vehicles pursuant to Resolution Number 80, 2012, and Revised Code Section 505.871. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution Number 22, 2018, repealing listed previously enacted resolutions of the township relating to the control of dogs and adopting the Springfield Township Dog Regulations, a comprehensive code to be applied throughout Springfield Township. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
And finally, we have Resolution Number 23, 2018, authorizing the filing of an application pursuant to Revised Code 2981.12 and Revised Code 3719.11 to authorize the destruction of property in possession of the Springfield Township Police Department that has been unclaimed, lost, abandoned, stolen, forfeited, or otherwise lawfully seized. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconding.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Okay. Next, do we have any old business before the board? Steve?
I do not, Joe.
Any new business?
I do not.
We then come to citizens' participation. If there is anyone here this evening that would like to address the board, we would ask that you step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Neil Nadell. I live at 7821 Rambleview in the township here. I want to first say thank you to the trustees for allowing us to address you guys. So I just want to start by saying that I'm a registered nurse here in Cincinnati, and I'm currently a graduate student at the University of Cincinnati studying anesthesia. And I'm also the father of two small children, a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, who will be, the 4-year-old particularly will be starting school soon with the next school year. So that being said, this being, I believe, the first meeting we've held since the Parkland shooting in South Florida, as a father, as a parent, obviously gun safety and school safety because of this has become forefront in my mind. And so I wanted to ask and perhaps get the thoughts of the trustees on, first of all, perhaps gun safety and school safety here in Springfield Township, and whether this incident, even though it wasn't here in Springfield Township or Ohio, I think it has woken up the conscience of a lot of people across the country, and whether that has caused some instance for review of perhaps the safety situation and the security situation in our schools in Springfield Township, and also revisited the idea of whatever local ordinances we may have or be able to do separate from Ohio code in regards to gun safety as well, seeing as how we're a township that has a gun shop within walking distance of 2 schools. And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. Nationally, of course, there's the talk about perhaps arming teachers and whatnot, and personally, I'm against that. So I just want to know if this has been something that's starting to be brought up here on the local level, if there is anything that can be done separate from Ohio code, and what those things might be. I'm also willing to talk to you guys after adjournment privately, if you guys don't want to address it now.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Well, I could tell you a couple of things. The last resolution here that we did, Resolution 23, 2018, was authorizing this, that says authorizing the destruction of property and possession of the police department. And that's, a lot of that's drugs, but a lot of that's also guns that we've taken off, out of the community, off of people that, didn't have a right to possess them. I know we had our annual police awards dinner about a week ago, and Chief, it was incredible. How many guns did your department?
155?
Like 155 guns that were taken from people that
Off
otherwise
the-
aren't legal to have.
That's just in 2017.
Yeah, and so there are, it's something we're constantly doing, trying to get guns out of the hands of criminals. You can't always tell if, who's going to be the person that's going to, commit a crime with a gun. I don't know, Chief, regarding some of the things, what could you say?
This is an extremely long conversation, but we've done a lot of things since that shooting has happened with all of our school districts, but we've been doing a lot of these things for many, many years. I'm happy to meet with you and talk to you about that. It's an extremely long conversation, no.
Okay, very good. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening?
Did you come to say goodbye to Mike?
I don't need a microphone.
We already hugged.
I'm an actor.
We already hugged it to save the township.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity. Dave Hughes, 853 Denier Place. My apologies, our sincere condolences to Gwen McFarland, who's dealing with a family emergency. Congratulations, Mike, on your retirement. In some weird way, I'm going to miss you. We've had some very contentious discussions, but I have the utmost respect for you. It was a couple years ago. My wife is a producer on top of her full-time job and threw a cast party, and she just collapsed, and the refrigerator broke her fall. We called EMT. They were there, like 4 minutes, and I never properly thanked them. They came in, checked her vitals, put her to bed, boom, it was done. And I apologize, I don't know their names. They did a fantastic job. So, some of you may know Denier Place and Finney Trail are private streets. This was taken back in 1957 when the residents decided we're going to prevent what could be a through street from Winton to North Bend. So they voted to take it private, which means every time it snows or whatever, we have to decide whether to plow, and we fix the curbs and, fix the cracks, and there's an annual fee and all that stuff. So one of the residents said, well, we need we need a sign that says no soliciting. I said, okay, well, we can put that up. And I'm going around, I can't find a pole tall enough to hold the sign. So finally, I called the township maintenance. I said, do you guys have a pole that we can get, that we can buy? And the gentleman at maintenance said, well, it's not worth the paperwork. We're just going to give you the pole. He said, I'll leave it outside the front door. Just take it. That's the way this township works. And Mr. Gilbert, I'm going to curse you for Groundhog Day because I think about that Sonny and Cher song, I Got You, Babe, or whatever it's called, every day. I'm thinking of another song, of another movie. It's about a big boat and an iceberg. And every year, the folks in charge move around the chairs. Tony Melillo says hello. She was at our house the other day. And I said, Tony, every now and then this master plan thing comes up. And she said, you tell them that the reason we sold our home on Finney Trail and moved to Harrison, Ohio, is Center Point. You tell them that. I've never seen her so upset. Let's get to yes. It's time. Where we can all agree on what's best for the town, for not just the township, the community, and what works for the township. No one wakes up and says, oh, I think I'd like to be a community activist. It's thrust on you. The second worst day of my wife's life was we're sitting in our jammies, we're reading the New York Times and the Enquirer as we do every Sunday. And she says, you got to read this. There may be guys walking around on decks, drinking beers, looking over an elementary school. It's called an open container zone. I'd never heard of it. That was WTF, and it wasn't welcome to Finneytown. And I was telling Chris, I can't go to Kroger's, I can't go to Humbert's, I can't go to the bank. Everybody wants to know what is going on with water. Who in their right mind with a $150,000 home puts a yard sign in front of their house for 3 years? Are these people crazy? Do we have any update on Nair St. Francis? Mark, you had kind of mentioned that there might be a deadline here coming up, or what?
Deadline's not till end of November.
Okay. So can we come up with a committee before that, or we have to wait?
I mean, there's no reason to come up with a committee before that, or,
Why not?
well, unless they tell us that they're not.
Is there any legal reason why we can't sit down, say, in a month or two?
You can sit down and talk all you want. The problem is, if they execute the contract, whatever you talk about
What
is
does that mean,
irrelevant.
execute?
There's certain things in the contract as it goes on. If they do certain things by November, it's extended for another year.
You're kidding me.
No.
This really is Groundhog Day.
Well, for you, I guess it is.
No, for
Dave, we
the
have
community.
Dave, we have contractual obligations with the St. Francis Group, and if they fulfill their obligations under the contract, then there's certain rights and, responsibilities that flow from that. And so, no, to create a committee to talk about, I don't know what, I mean, we're committed to an agreement with this developer.
Okay,
So we're
Joe,
gonna
so
see
which
what
is
he
it?
comes
Is
back with.
it the commitment to Nair or the commitment to the community?
The commitment has been to the community from the get-go. That's why we spent the money.
Respectfully,
Wait
BS.
a minute. We spent taxpayer dollars to buy this, to protect places like yours from what would have been very bad zoning, we felt at the time. And that this predates township zoning, back when the county would have been able to put in there whatever they wanted. We prevented that to prevent some of the very things you're talking about. We now have to look what is in the best interest of Springfield Township as a whole.
Preventing things that you guys proposed. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I'm saying you guys are the ones who proposed this development, now you're saying we're saving it?
No. You can disagree all you want about whether it's the right thing for the community or not. We choose to disagree with your opinion on that. And you have every right to disagree
Mark,
with us.
it's not my opinion. I walk the neighborhood just about every day.
Okay, it's your neighborhood's opinion. We're not getting it from any other parts of the
Dave,
township.
we plowed this ground so many times.
I know.
We
I'm
had
tired
a
of it, too.
master, we had a group of citizens, over 50 citizens come from all parts of the township. We had our master plan meetings. They unanimously told the Board of Trustees, move forward with this. This is a good thing for the township.
Yeah, and I was conveniently left off that committee, and I don't think they knew what they were voting for. We do have a committee that is ready to sit down and talk about what's best. It would be very economical. There's a woman named Alberta Hemsley. She organized the Greater Cincinnati Dems. Tracy Freiberger, she's wonderful at managing the water nursery. Of course, you know Chelsea Rothschild. You got the Clean Water Club. These guys go back there. That place is cleaner than my backyard. So what a great PR move it would be. Get the signs down, put up a few park benches, low-impact recreation, some trail signs, maybe some pond aeration has been suggested, like they do at Spring Grove. That's it. And we can get grants to do this, so it's very low cost. Nair had their chance. If they can't come up with it by now, for crying out loud, what is another 6 months or year going to make a difference? I mean, why are you dragging this out?
Dave,
You don't build something in a year.
We're talking
It's
15
planning.
years, Dan. Come on.
No. This started in the last 2.5, 3 years. That's it.
You bought it 15 years ago.
Right, and the
And
plan
we're-
was when they bought it to put it
There
down on
have been
parking.
5 different proposals, and none of them work.
Well, yeah, the only proposal I know of, you may have a bunch of them in your mind, the one I know of was a park. The park didn't work, it was too expensive.
Well, it would have flattened the whole place anyway. That
So
was like
we had
the
an
worst.
option. We could either leave it go as it was, sell it to the developer who could build houses on it the way it's zoned, or take control of it, change the zoning so that the board could control it. And for the residents that are around there, that's what the board did. They moved forward, so another board two of them could have get not elected next year, and they could have sold this to the developer, and the zoning's already set. So they took control of it for the residents, had meetings to make sure the residents were all involved, not just your group, but the whole township, because it is the township money, the $1.3 million or $2 million, whatever we have invested. That's my money, your money, Pleasant Run Farms money. Everybody's involved. This isn't your property to run. It's the whole township's. And you're acting like
It's
the board
the
is.
community's property.
Right, the whole township.
You have-
Every resident of the township is who bought it. Not your group, not Finneytown, not Denier. It's the whole township. And that's who they represent, the whole township. And you're coming up here acting like they're not doing their jobs. I take offense to that because they have worked with you more than any resident since I've been here. You're and your group. And they're doing everything they can to keep you informed and to work with you. But the whole township in the master plan said, look at developing it. If it's not right, we don't want it touched. That's their commitment.
I respect that.
So it may not be touched, but as of now, they're working with a developer who's trying to find the right combination that they can agree with to get the property moving forward. It may never happen. It may happen in 2 years. It may happen next week. We don't know. We're not out there ourselves doing that because that's not our expertise. But you're acting like they're not doing their jobs and that your people are so upset because it's taken so long. That's the way development works. I'm in the business. It takes a long time to develop a property. And that's what it's going to be.
The other piece of it, Dave, is it sat dormant for, like you say, 15 years. And
What's wrong with dormant? I'm telling you,
did
Mark, I
nothing.
talk with people every
That's great.
week.
We know what your opinion is on the project, Dave. You can come up here every meeting and tell us what it is. We do know what it is. We know how you feel, and we know where you're coming from. And
Here's the
that's-
disconnect.
You're entitled
Mark.
to it.
Here's the disconnect, is that the community that we've talked to, and I mean, we're talking about
I
hundreds of residents,
understand.
feel that the township has not listened.
I
The
understand.
township is saying, well, we know it's best for you. That's the perception.
Got you.
Like it or not, that is where the residents are. All these people walking their dogs and walking through the neighborhood and all. That's the perception.
Joe, I disagree with you. Or Dave, I disagree with you. We just had 2 trustees get reelected by a landslide because they're doing what's best for the whole community. That's my opinion. You have yours. I have mine.
Here's the thing, though, Dave. So you're coming to us tonight and you're saying, what's going on? The answer is nothing really new.
No, I'm making a
Now-
proposal. I'm saying
now,
let's
wait
get
a
the
minute,
city
wait a
move
minute.
forward
But-
for a preserve with low impact recreation.
We sat
That
here
was-
6 weeks ago and
Oh,
told
wait a
you
minute.
that there's a contract on
That
it.
ship sailed a year ago. Or a year and a half ago. That's over. So coming here and telling, it's over. This property is zoned and we're under a contract with a developer. We're not going to now sit
Well,
here
let's
and-
talk about the community. You're talking like we have this obligation to a developer.
It's not-
The obligation is to the
not
community,
just
and
an
that's where I think you
obligation,
guys
Dave.
don't get it.
It's a decision that the board made and still believes is the right thing for the property for all of Springfield Township.
And that's why we had public meeting after public meeting where we talked about this, considered this, allowed
I'll just say
all
this
kinds of input. And at the end of the day, the message which we have got, and I don't just travel in Finneytown, I'm in all different places of this township. And I can tell you what, the people in Pleasant Run Farms do not want to see this is some green space in your backyard. They don't. They want it developed. They want it
Well,
to
that's
be-
just it, Joe. They're 8 miles away. New Burlington shouldn't be calling the shots
They're
on
tax-
Finneytown.
They're taxpayers, the whole community, the whole township.
Let me just tell you, you play golf?
I do not.
I do.
I do.
You can tee up. And this was one of the conditions of the Warder family when they sold, because they owned the property at Denier, and I'm going to try to cut this short. I know you guys are starting to scratch your heads. But you can tee off in our backyard and hit that ball 300 yards, and you can follow that ball yard after yard after yard, because the Warder family asked the people who purchased and the developers to not put up fences. It's like living in a park. That's why we live there. My wife said, we are never moving. They're going to take me out feet first. And then Linda Ray, who lived next door, she died in her bed, surrounded by family, next door at 86. People
Dave,
don't leave. People
Dave.
do not leave. This is a very stable neighborhood, and to put in any kind of development, whether it's medical buildings or whatever, is going to be antithetical to what is in the interest of the community. And believe me, I wouldn't be here wasting everybody's time if people thought otherwise. If people said, well, yeah, we love development. We're just at odds on this one. I don't think that that's the case.
Lord, if you may, I had a conversation with Dave a few weeks ago. He and I had a very similar conversation as this, actually. To speak of Groundhog Day, I'm having a little deja vu now. And I'll just leave you with this, Dave. And while we may have a difference of opinion as to what's best for the community in the long run, you indicated the people in Pleasure Run Farms or other parts of the township aren't next to it, so they don't have to live with it like you do. But do you not benefit from a taxpayer from the commercial or industrial properties that are in other parts of the township, doesn't that in some way lessen the burden that you have as a residential taxpayer in the township? Yet, you don't have to live next to those either, but the people that are in other parts of the township do, that you benefit from. So I think they have just as much a right to be concerned about what happens on this vacant piece of property the township owns as you do about the development pieces of property in other parts of the township that you benefit from.
Chris, you're saying that this is about revenue. I'm saying this is about quality of life. And that, unfortunately, is what this board does not get yet. And I don't know how we get there. There is a committee ready to sit down and talk about what's best for the community. When you guys are ready, you let me know.
Fair enough.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening? It appearing that there is not, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.